Scott, let me kick it off with you. I told you in the green room, so I've been repeating something you said on our planning call, and that is short-term is really hard to call right now.
For sure, yeah. What a strange environment we're in. In fact, we did an investor day recently, and I made the comment, it's almost easier to see the long term than it is the short term. And so what we're doing today, frankly, is we're talking more about decision models. You used to be able to put a plan out and say, I think we can create this plan, but right now it's so volatile. We're thinking about agility, how do we react quick, and what are the decision models or the no regret actions that we should take, rather than maybe traditional planning.
Well, Katie, come on in, because like Tapestry, you are a global organization. You work with like 4,300 organizations around the globe, most of them Fortune 100. So what are you hearing from them? What are you seeing about the global macro environment?
Yeah, it's fascinating time. I think the good news is, so we do think about Alight as benefits and global payroll, overall administration. So whether we're in a tough macro environment or a great macro environment, people still need benefits and they still need to get paid. So that's the good news, which is helpful. But at the same time, because of that position, for us, we're spending a lot of time saying, so how can we go an extra step to help our clients? Right? We are in this unique position. Do we need to think differently about payment terms for them for the short term, because it will afford us a relationship that will grow longer term? And so that's there's a lot of pressure for a lot of companies. I think we're in a good place, so it's enabling us to think differently.
Can I ask you, because one of the big things, I promise you're going to talk about finance talent in a moment, but China, like you have exposure to China, and I have to say, I can't tell you how many times like I was reading Chinese stories over the past weekend and trying to understand what China is going forward. People have said to me, China doesn't want to see its economy come apart and doesn't want to pull apart fully, but how do you factor something like that in terms of your thinking?
Yeah, it's tough. So the first thing we did is we looked at what's happened before. I mean, there's the COVID issues, and then there's maybe the more secular or bigger issues that are out there. So we've looked at when you see COVID effects, which there are still some, what can you expect? And we used history as a guide on that. And then in general, we said, we're just going to snap a line here. Look at the trend in our business that we see. What's happening right now as we project that forward, and be very clear about what our expectations are. Because you really can't, if you say I want to be conservative or aggressive, what does that mean? How do you do that? So we said we're not going to try to be that cute. We're going to look at what is the trend, what is our consumer doing today, and as we project that forward, that's the basis for our guidance and what we see going forward.
Katie, you feel the same in terms of some of the instability we've seen, whether it's the UK or China?
I do. I think we're seeing it more in Europe today, but I mean, it comes back a little bit back to diversification, right? I mean, it's so hard. I can never predict China versus the UK, but I know globally I can take a balanced approach, right? Because some are going to be up, some are going to be down at different points in time. Look at currency right now. I mean, right? You can't predict currency, but you can figure out a solid hedging strategy so that you're balanced across your portfolio.
All right, so let's talk about when you think about talent in this environment and what you think about. Scott, front and center for you, you said the character lens. When you're thinking about talent, what does that mean?
Well, for me, what that means is the first thing I always look at is, are you a team player? Are you out for the win of the broader group? Because people see authenticity or the opposite, right? And so I want to build a team. I want to build a group of people who are working together and have each other's backs. And to me, that's the go, no go.
How do you know though when somebody walks in?
Well, you don't know, but you do. I always get an impression, right? But I think one of the things that I've learned over time is actually to get a broader group into that discussion, and a diverse group.
Smart.
Because we tend, right? We bring our biases in, and we tend to hire people like us. So one of the things I've forced myself to do, and I've learned over time, is make sure you're getting people from a broader range of experiences and people that are coming from a different place to help you judge, is this going to be a good fit for our team?
It makes a difference.
It absolutely makes a difference.
Katie, you too said to me, I can teach somebody P&L. but there's other things that I can't. So tell me about what you're looking for when you're bringing somebody in or pulling somebody along internally. What is it that you look for when you're building out
Broad
your
experiences. I think that's so critical today. Like even I almost try to look at my talent, if they were to become a CEO, not even CFO, right? It's almost, if you think about bringing that strategic perspective with a financial perspective, I think it's really important. I talked to a CEO who I was helping her find a CFO, and she said, should I focus on industry or finance experience? I said, that's like an impossible question, right? It depends on where you are at that point in time for your organization, and you've got to complement yourself with those skill sets that you might not be as good at.
So can I build on that too? Because I think another thing that is important is learning agility and maybe it's guts. I don't know. People who have jumped into different areas, different disciplines, because I think the CFO of today needs to be way more than just a financial person. And I look for that global experience, people that have been in different aspects of the business, because they're going to be more empathetic,
right,
and they're going to have a better, broader perspective, to be able to get to the C-suite.
There is something very interesting about, I feel like, the progression of CFOs, and I think we felt it, I've said this a million times because I feel it, after the financial crisis, man, those CFOs kept companies alive and figured out how to do it.
Yeah.
Same thing in the pandemic, we've seen different members of the C-suite that are more and more important, and I feel like the CFO and their team is really very crucial in terms of strategy and really keeping companies alive in many different ways.
Yeah, I think that's so true. And
how did the pandemic even move that in a different way?
Well, it's even broader than the pandemic. I mean, a recruiter this summer, she had 200 open positions for CFOs, right? And I said that, but think about so not only had the pandemic, but then you had all this pent up demand and all these companies going public. So you needed a different skill set. It wasn't even
they're all
just kind of.
And they're all done anyway. sorry.
Okay, but we were SPACs.
Oh, sorry. That's right. You were. Okay, you're the exception.
But we're not flying taxis to the moon.
We
have real profit.
You're one of the good ones and solid ones.
No, but it's true. I mean, I just think there's a different skill set through those different progressions in what we see.
No.
I fully agree. And I mean, in the early days of the pandemic, it was so uncertain. And everybody looked at us, right, to say, basically, are you okay?
Right.
And so I felt we took a different role in terms of just helping the organization understand, first of all, we're okay. These are the actions we're taking. This is why we think we're okay. And then slowly that went back to, okay, we got 6 months of planning to do in 6 weeks because everything just changed. And it seems like we've been on that little treadmill since, really.
So true.
When you think about talent, internal development versus external development, Katie, how do you think about it?
You have to have a balance of both. I mean, you always have to have a balance of both. But I think it's funny, we were talking about getting people back to work, right? You have to meet people where they are today, but at some point, we all still have to figure out how to develop more internally in a remote environment. It's hard.
Yeah.
But ways to complement that if you can't do it all, obviously, on site, I think there's tons of external perspectives that help, honestly, bring new ideas to a company, but also bring new skill sets to our teams.
Yeah, I guess in our pre-call, we had a discussion about this. I think it's a hard one, but I would just own it and say I have a strong preference for internal talent. I think that's an important message to your organization, and when people come in, that's where I'm going to look first. That said, you can't always do it, right? And especially in the EI&D area, we often have a conflict, right, in terms of internal promotion or do we go to the outside, and those are always hard discussions, and sometimes you go left, sometimes you go right. But as a general rule, I think it's an important message for your organization and for your brand as an employer to give preference to internal
I think that's so
promotions.
well said, right? I mean, if what a signal that sends if you're not promoting internally. That's really hard for your teams.
So in terms of diversification, there's one thing I thought was really cool, Scott, that you guys have said that you do, that you move people around. And so I think you've had, your Kate Spade CFO move into another area. So you're moving people around within the organization. Whose is that? No, I'm just kidding. But you move people within the organization, right, to get different experiences.
Yeah, I just moved everybody and all our brand CFOs, and we moved some into non-traditional areas like into supply chain, and moved people into corporate or into brands, and I think that's really important. And again, it's the balance between, on the one hand, your risk aversion says be slow, and nobody wants to give up great talent, right? That's always the problem of internal movement, at least in my experience. Everybody wants to hold on to their great talent. But if you're moving a broad group of people and you send a signal to the organization, that's part of what we do, then over time, I think it helps you, again, build your brand. We're a place where we're gonna shepherd talent, we're gonna give you new experiences. The other side of this is I always have the conversations that I hope your job is gonna be with us, but it might not be. So what's your aspiration? I'll help you get there. I'm gonna give you the experiences that are gonna help you get there. I really hope it's with us, but it might not be. And that's okay for our brand too. When we prepare somebody to go out and be a public company CFO, that's great for us. That helps us.
Katie, what about in terms of thinking about moving people around globally or bringing, different divisions? How does that help you guys? Do you think about that?
Absolutely. I think it's so critical. And I think it's great for career development, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard if you're kind of focused in just one area, there might not be a lot of movement for a period of time. Then you start losing people. So it might not even have to be a full move. Like we'll even look at it as projects, right? How can we do a big global project and bring, some of our high potentials to run that project for us? And so they get extra visibility, they get, I think, more development. I think we can, you can come at it that way as well.
Can I ask you about the younger generation? Because I think it's easier once you've got some people that have been there for a while, right? They see kind of a trajectory. But connecting with the younger population, we were talking about this on our call and even before. How's that going?
Start? You want to start?
Well, I guess I'll start. I think it's going okay, with the except. What I would say is, what I've learned is there's a very different expectation and a very different motivation, generationally, right? We were joking. We all like to be in the office, right? Yeah. Probably many in this room do. They value their autonomy and the ability to, have more agency over their work and the ability to control things. And if I'm honest with you, we struggle a bit with finding the balance generationally between that. I think we're probably like many of you, we're trying hybrid solutions. I wouldn't say we've got it figured out. I think we have an okay answer.
Yeah, I think the only thing I'd add, we see it with a number of our people, the importance of mission, right? Mission-driven companies, and how important, like we even did a survey, that was more important than pay. And I think that's great for all of us. I mean, so I think we have to learn mutually from each other.
Agreed.
And I think that'll make us stronger. But you're right. I mean, we said, let's just come in one day a week. We realized, well, if it was one day that they spent the whole day just talking to each other, right, and catching up. So we moved to 1 week a quarter, closing the quarter, get cross-functional collaboration. We'll even fly people in so that by day 2, we're at least productive.
Yeah.
But it's worked better because you can plan for it. So we're just trying new strategies.
So they're all together for a week.
Yeah.
And they love it. Right? They love being together. So I don't think we're done evolving, honestly. Yeah. I think we're still figuring this out. And, we're talking about, should we reconfigure our offices? My personal opinion is, to what? We 2 years ago, we would have done this. Now we're here. What's 2 years from now going to be, right?
So true.
It does feel like we're just not quite sure. We're not on the other side of the pandemic totally. We're in a much better place. But whether it's hybrid or mixed or in the office, open space, we just don't know yet.
But I think that's why it goes back to all the discussions you've had before us, right?
Yeah.
Agility, technology, right? We have to build for that environment so we're ready for wherever it goes.
All right, so bring in technology. All of you, both of you, so many, right? We all use data for everything. It makes us smarter, it makes us more efficient, hopefully. Lets us connect better with our customers. So what's that great mix, Katie, between, you guys use a lot, right, in terms of what you're doing. What's the right mix between people and technology?
Again, I think it's dependent on where the stage of your company. And even, so for us, right, as I take Alight, we've said we are a services and software company. If someone has a complex medical issue, they're going to want to talk to someone. It should never be fully automated.
Right.
I mean, it's the same in finance. If we should automate as much of the day-to-day as we can and leverage technology to bring insights, but we're always going to need people with all these scenario planning we're doing to be business partners, right? To help them make day-to-day decisions in those trade-offs. So I think it's hard to say there's some magical percentage, but you've got to find the best of both.
Scott.
Yeah, I completely agree. I guess what we honestly battle with is the technology. We're a data-rich organization.
Yep.
We're a retailer. We have
AI.
amazing amounts of machine learning, AI, and we use it, I think, pretty effectively. But on the same token, you got to watch out because it can be a shiny object that you chase. And one of the conversations that I always feel is my role from when I put the CFO hat on is, somebody said it earlier, I liked it, what's the payback on the data? You know, because I hadn't thought of it that way, but that's the right thing. But I always think of it, what's the outcome you're trying to drive, and is it there? Because, for example, we'll automate a lot of things with the idea of taking work out, and a lot of times it doesn't.
Right.
And so you got to stop and say, wait a minute.
To what end?
Yeah, to what end are we doing this? So I do think there's a balance where that's the human side, your common sense, and our demand that we see return on these investments, because it's expensive to do this stuff.
What I wanted to ask you in terms of leadership, and I know we've got a few minutes left here, what leadership strategies do you have to build out the finance talent model that you need? So as you think about leaders, Katie.
Sorry,
I can go to Scott.
No, that's fine. I mean, where do I start? Empathy, patience, and I keep coming back to broad experiences.
It's like being a good parent.
A little bit. I mean, but the experiences to know the questions to ask. That's why I come back to as such a key skill set. The more you've been through, I think the more you know how to navigate the next event, right? And surround yourself with phenomenal people, right? My background's not necessarily traditional. I came out of investment banking. So I have, my controller is incredible, right? Because that's not my skill set. So I just think knowing your strengths, knowing where you need to surround yourself with people to make you better, and being a good listener.
Scott.
I love the word empathy that you used, Katie, because I think when I think about developing our talent, as I said before, getting different experiences and walking in the shoes of other people just makes you a better solver. Because let's be honest, the financial people usually are the problem solvers and the navigators who get things done. So I encourage, and I think people's willingness to step out to do different things, I think is one of the most important things.
My last question is, when you think about your team, your employees, your members of your team, what do you hope is one thing that they say about you as a leader? Scott.
That I partnered with them to help them become their best self. I think if we do it right, I often say we're not going to remember the quarter, we're not going to remember the year, or even the bonus, but you do remember the people you influenced, and I would like to think that I'm helping people grow personally and professionally, and that is what I'd like to see my legacy be.
Katie.
I'm not sure I can top that. That was really good.
You can. You could say.
I'm with you.
You can say ditto. Katie and Scott, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.